if it's just a vanity metric, if they just want more likes or just want more followers, you all know as well as I do that those things mean nothing without action. Hey everyone, what's up? Welcome back to the Freelance Friday podcast. So welcome back to the podcast, you guys. I want to read a quick Apple podcast review for you all. This one comes from Ceramics Business. Ceramics Business says that this podcast is so relatable even outside your field. I really appreciate Latasha's friendly, professional, and authentic thoughts. As a listener, you feel like you're talking to someone who knows their stuff, but also like you are having a professional coffee date with a close friend. Honest, open, and gets into the grit. We are having a coffee date. Thank you so much. I love that review. That was so nice. So today I'm talking about social media strategy. This is a really big question, a really big, important thing for anyone out there who is a social media manager. I know a lot of you all are. And even if you're not, I think this is going to be helpful for you because you probably need to use social media for your business or your brand or whatever it is that you are doing. So here's how to create a social media strategy. This is the blueprint. So the first thing that you need to do is set goals. And I'm going to be speaking from a client service provider relationship. So I'm going to be sharing with you guys how I, start these conversations with my clients and get them all set up and all that. But again, you can apply this to your own business or whatever you want to do with it. So set goals is the first thing that you're going to need to do. When somebody reaches out to me and they say, hey, Latasha, can you help us develop a social media strategy? I say, absolutely. What are your business goals? That's literally like the next question that comes out of my mouth when I have those conversations. And I need to know what their regular business goals are. So that way I can take those business goals and I can create my own social media specific goals. And from there, what's going to be the output from that is metrics that we can measure, as tangible as you can get in a digital medium. So let me give you an example. E-commerce is probably always the easiest one to share because it's the easiest to measure. So an e-commerce company, let's say that they are a footwear brand, they want to sell more shoes. And in particular, they want to sell more of a specific type of shoe. Maybe they're an athletic shoe company, but they want people to know that they have casual sandals too. And so they're really looking to boost sales in that specific category. So what I'm going to do is I'm going to say, okay, great. So we are going to have a goal of getting more conversion goals completed. So that means sales, clicks over to our website, things like that. And then those metrics I can actually measure, especially if they have tracking set up properly, which they should have, like Google Analytics, Facebook Pixel, all that. I can actually track through, okay, here's how many sales came from social media. Or if, maybe they're like a very new brand, they don't have that sophisticated of tracking on their website, I can at least say, hey, I sent 500 people over to your website from social media last month. And that is going to be the closest that you can get because obviously, if somebody's clicking over to the website on a sales type post, likely they're going to buy or at least they're interested in purchasing. So that is kind of the full path. And you have to have a goal, right? You have to, because I could take that same shoe company and I could say, awesome, you want me to do your social media. We don't talk about goals. And I say, awesome, I'm going to grow their social media following so much, and I'm going to do nothing but influencer collaborations. I might buy some, followers, which you guys know I don't recommend, but I could. A lot of social media strategists do that. And they're going to be really impressed because I'm going to get them 1 million followers by the end of the year. But if they didn't get any sales from those 1 million followers, it literally means nothing. Obviously, they would probably get something, I would hope, from 1 million followers, but that might not be their main goal. Their main goal might not be followers. On the contrary, sometimes a client will come to me and say, we want a bunch of followers. And I'm like, okay, cool. Why? Like, tell me what the thought process is on why you want to grow your following. And they'll be like, oh yeah, well, we want more sales. And I'm like, well, maybe what you need to do is just reach your existing following a little better. Obviously, I'm never going to say you don't want to grow your following, but focusing on those metrics can sometimes be a little bit of a recipe for disaster if it's just a vanity metric. If they just want more likes or just want more followers, You all know as well as I do that those things mean nothing without action. So it might really be that we need to actually boost our engagement so that our posts start showing up in our followers' feeds more, and our existing followership actually buys from us and sees what we have going on and what we have to sell to them. So yeah, goals, super important. And it's important to be aligned with this too, with your client too. Like, be on the same page about it from day one. Let them know, okay, we had this conversation, so these are my social goals, these are the metrics I can provide you at the end of every month. And be in communication about it so that there's no surprise, that they're not surprised, for better or for worse. I mean, I guess for better is good. Under promise, over deliver is never a bad thing, but you definitely want to be on the same page about goals. I personally always use the SMART acronym: specific, measurable, attainable, relevant, and timely. And that's how I formulate my goals, because even the example that I shared about the shoe company, they want to sell more slides or sandals or whatever. What is more? Like, one more? 20 more, 1,000 more, 10,000 more units? Like, you do have to know that as well, especially when you're doing like paid advertising, because I'm going to need a way different paid budget for 10,000 more units versus like 20 more units. Timelines: when do they want to sell those by? Do they want to increase those sales over a 3-year period, or do they want to increase those sales over like the next week? That's also very important, and it's going to affect your strategy, your budget, the price that you're taking, because you're going to be working overtime if they want to sell 10,000 units in a week. All that stuff is super important to get on the same page about. So specific, measurable, attainable, relevant, timely. Those are our goals. Next thing you're going to want to do is do some persona research. You're going to want to understand who the heck you're selling to or talking to on social media. So hopefully your client is going to know this. And this is like question 2 that I asked them. I say, great, I know your goals. So who are we talking to here? Who is your audience? Who are your customers? What types of people tend to, buy from you? Who are you trying to reach? Because that might be 2 different things. Their typical customers might be one thing. Their goal customers or clients might be somebody else. So important to have those conversations there. And hopefully they will know. And these are also really good conversations to have to kind of gauge your customer, gauge your client, and maybe get an understanding of what type of client they're going to be. Because when I have a client who doesn't know any of these answers, it scares me a little bit. I'm going to be honest. I mean, it's my job to help them through a lot of this stuff and make those recommendations of, doing as much research as I can, but maybe they need to pull in like a research tool or something as well. It's my job to make those recommendations. But at the same time, I mean, I'm a business owner. I can tell you 5 things about my following or my ideal client just off the top of my head. And you should be able to, I think, as a business owner. I think it's important to be able to speak to those things. You might not know the social specific versions of those things. I don't personally know how to do Google ads very well. So if I were to say, hey, I want to run some Google ads and go to an agency or a freelancer, I could tell them a few things about my search traffic or my ideal client who I'm trying to reach. I might not know how to put those into Google terms. Like, I might not know the targeting layers available for Google, but I can tell them in plain speech. I want to reach startup people in these specific geographic locations in blah, 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 blah. So I'm not saying it's a full-on red flag, but they should be able to work with you. And I think if they're not willing to like work with you and do a little research, do a little digging themselves, do some exercises maybe that you provide them, that's not really a good sign. You're not like a footwear expert, right? Like, you're a social media manager, so you do need them to work with you. I think this is super important. Anyway, tangent there, but persona research. Who are they trying to reach? Anything is helpful here. Age, gender, geographic location, any types of like cultural references that they like. Like, maybe they like Schitt's Creek. Is that what it's called? I don't know why that's like the first TV show that came to mind for me, but maybe they like that show. Maybe they like Game of Thrones. Maybe they like video games. Maybe they like sports. Like, all of those things are going to help influence the tone and voice that you're going to use in your social media messaging. So like Game of Thrones was huge. That was like a cultural phenomenon, right? And I know, I mean, tons of brands, tweeted along with the show and like injected their brand in it somehow. Starbucks, for example, remember when the Starbucks cup was left on the production room, in the shot? I mean, just knowing things like that so you can make jokes and be culturally relevant and use the right tone and voice is super important. So get as much of that as you can. If they really don't know that stuff, again, hopefully they're going to be willing to work with you, and they should be able to at least help pull their analytics for you, / you can do this yourself if you have access to their accounts. Look at who is currently following them. Go into your Facebook page insights, go into Instagram insights. Twitter doesn't really have analytics anymore, unfortunately. LinkedIn is pretty kind of limited. I need to do an update on my analytics series, actually. Maybe I'll do that soon. But look at who's currently following them if they do have anything of a following. If they have nothing of a following, then that's a little bit challenging as well, but you can still do some research. Look at their website information. So if they have Google Analytics, or even just like Squarespace's native analytics and WordPress, like their native analytics, I'm pretty sure gives you a little bit of information about at least geographic location of where people are coming from. So you can gather little tidbits here and there. You can also do some of your own kind of DIY market research. So you can post into Facebook groups, forums, look on Reddit, I can never say this word properly. I think it's Quora. I don't know how to say it, but that website, just like start searching around and see handbags, okay, your client is a handbag company, start typing handbag into Quora, luxury bag, like whatever it is, and see what questions people are asking, see what types of people are asking those questions, and so on and so forth, and just take note of those things. Because you really have to understand who you're talking to if you want your message to get across properly. Next thing that I recommend doing is competitor research. So very similar to market research, you're just gonna take a look at what their competitors are doing. If my client is Louis Vuitton, I'm gonna take a look at, Chloe and Dior, and take a look at their, what they're doing to promote their handbags or their design house or whatever. So real simple stuff here. Just take a look at like how often they're posting on their social channels, which social channels they're leveraging. I think this is really important because you don't have to be on every social platform. I mean, I think that's like one of the biggest myths in social media strategy today is that you need to be doing everything, and you don't. Especially if you are a freelancer watching this, a one person show, you realistically, unless they're paying you a lot of money and you have a lot of time, you probably are not going to be doing like 10 social media platforms for them. You're probably going to be focusing on like a handful and doing a really good job and maybe repurposing content for the other ones, but you're probably not going to be like creating original content for like LinkedIn, Instagram, Twitter, YouTube, Facebook, podcast. I mean, that's not really social media, but whatever. You're probably not going to be doing that, right? So take a look at what the competitors are on. So that way, either to one of two things. One, where there's a gap in the market, because sometimes that can be fun. If there's no podcast about handbags, maybe that's a good area of opportunity. If the demographics line up, your ideal client demographics line up with podcast listenership, maybe that's a gap in the market that you can kind of take. You can take that over. Or you can follow their lead. So if you're seeing, oh my gosh, this company is getting such good traffic, engagement, all that stuff from Instagram, we need to be on Instagram. They're selling so much on Instagram, then be on Instagram. But it can do a couple of different things. It can teach you what to do or what not to do, really. Let's take a look at platforms, posting frequency, just the types of content that they're posting. Again, you can take a look at who's following them. Any public data that you can see what types of people are following them, maybe some other brands that their followers tend to follow, so you can kind of paint a picture of that persona. So do a little bit of competitor research. And this is really helpful too to get buy-in from the client. So especially when I work with more corporate companies or even startups who have like investors and stuff that they need to kind of get approval on for everything, if I can say, okay, well, I'm making this completely up. These are none of my clients, but like my client is Honda. Well, let's look at what Chevrolet is doing. And typically the investor or the manager or the owner is going to be like, oh, okay, cool. Well, the competitor's doing that. We need to do that. Like they're running Facebook ads. Here's some budget for Facebook ads. So it can help with getting that buy-in if you kind of give that like, well, everybody else is doing it. It's kind of like when I don't have kids, but like, I just feel like all of my parent friends are like, yeah, like my kid is like, well, so-and-so has a phone already, so I bought him a phone. Or like he has an iPad, so I bought him an iPad. It's the same kind of thing, except with it's data driven. It's done for a good reason. It's not done for selfish causes. Okay, so competitor analysis. And these are all things too, by the way, really, I guess goal setting, not so much, but persona research, competitor analysis, this next thing that I'm going to mention, social audit. These are all things that you can price out individually as well. So if you are going to do, monthly social media management for a client, if you got to do all these steps, as you can see, this is like a lot of work. I mean, this is like weeks of work on its own. You can charge that. You can price that into your startup fee. So the first month, you're going to be doing a strategy, an audit, a competitor analysis, all this stuff. Tax some money onto that first month because you're going to be working a lot. So that's what I do. And then that way you can also price it out individually if people come to you, because sometimes people do. Again, especially my corporate clients, they'll come to me and be like, hey, can you do a social media strategy for us once per year? So I'm not actually doing this stuff, like their in-house people are implementing this stuff, but they want me to come in and do their strategy work. So obviously I need to have that price in my head so I can charge for that. Then you're going to do the social audit. So this is really going to be taking a look at what they're already doing. Now, if this is a brand new company, you're launching the social channels for them, you've taken that persona research, that competitor research, and decided, all right, your target audience is women ages 40 to 55 in the suburbs. We're going to be on Facebook #1 and probably maybe Instagram too. Look at like the platform stats and demographics and stuff, do a little bit of research on your own to determine which platforms they need to be on. Okay, cool, you're good there. But if they have an existing social presence that has already been going on before you, either started up by them, by a social media manager, an agency, whatever, I want you to audit that. Because just because they have been doing something doesn't mean it's right necessarily, or it's what they should be doing. So develop your own little set of criteria here. Take a look at just some baseline metrics. And this is important for you selfishly too, so that you can develop a case study. And this is something that like I've always forgotten to do, and I still always forget to do, is write down how many followers and what the average engagements were when I started working with a client. Because like I always forget until I've been working with them for 5 months, and it's like, wait, now I can't tell the whole story. So that's what an audit can help you do. Get a kind of benchmark of where they're at right now, how many followers they have, how many engagements they're getting, what content is performing really well, what their analytics are showing as far as their followership data, demographic data, all that. A preliminary report, essentially. And take a look at what's working and what's not. And again, sometimes this stuff will really surprise you. I will have in my mind like, oh my gosh, like these quote images do so well. And then you pull the data and you're like, these things are not doing anything for us. Or maybe they're getting like a ton of likes, but nobody is clicking. Nobody's clicking on those links. Or vice versa. So it's always good to do that. Next thing you're going to want to do from there is develop the infrastructure. So this typically, especially for a new company, is going to be setting up a scheduling tool and a process for them. So again, your established companies probably already have a tool that they use, and they might just onboard you onto that and show you how they use it, get you a seat, get you access to that. But if you're doing everything yourself, you're going to need to figure out, do we use a scheduling tool? Am I going to post things natively? How are we going to get the content calendars approved? Do I need approval? You got to figure all that stuff out. And then I also often, especially if this is a new company, go in and do SOPs or standard operating procedures for them if they don't have any yet. And again, this is another upsell. And this is something that I do a lot of actually. I think partially because I do have that like corporate background and I do a lot of training and coaching and courses. So I have that I don't know, I'm kind of like I naturally want to teach and document things in some way. So I often will upsell that. So I'll say, cool, like I can give you your SOPs, meaning this is what we do. And when we do it, this is how the content calendars get approved. Here's an example of our escalation process. So if there's a customer service issue, what we do, what the social media manager does with it, all the numbers that they need to call if there's an emergency. Document that all, and you guys can have this. You can have this whether you stay with me or not. You know, if you want to give this to your admin after I leave or whatever. So that's all what I kind of consider infrastructure, setting up the scheduling tool, doing the SOPs, all of that good stuff. And then really the last thing is just putting together a content calendar. So I mean, it's like the last thing, but it's like the hardest thing really because it's putting everything into motion. So I personally really like the scheduling tools that I use are Loomly and Hootsuite. But honestly, lately I've been using Facebook Creator Studio. So I've been scheduling natively onto Facebook and Instagram, and it's been doing me well. But again, you want to try out these different platforms, scheduling tools, figure out what works for you, and start building your content calendar. Regardless of the scheduling tool that I use, I typically will just build out a content calendar in like an Excel spreadsheet, real simple, just like post image, post copy, link, hashtags, and I'll just create a, Google Sheet, send it over to the client, get their approval, get their feedback on it, and that's how I'll start posting. So that's really what a social media strategy is. Some are more formal than others. If a client specifically is like, we need a social media strategy, then I'm going to make sure it's a really pretty nice document that has all of this information wrapped up into it. Whereas if it's just for me, like some of my clients could care less, then maybe it's just a document that I have on hand that's kind of saying, okay, we're going to post, images, behind the scenes images 3 times per week. We're going to post stories every day. We're going to post quote images twice a week, like whatever that is for me, so that I know when I'm creating the content calendar every week or every month, however you like to do it, you know what to do. So, and as far as content calendars, I usually actually do them week by week. I was doing them month by month for a long time, and because social and the internet moves so quickly, I think it's really important to leave some room for like real-time stuff. And I felt like I was moving things around a lot. So I do things weekly, but it never hurts to have posts on hand. So if you want to do a month of evergreen posts, which means a post that kind of never goes old, it's just kind of like standard, maybe boilerplate type messaging, it's never a bad idea to have a bunch of those on hand so you can just throw them in when you need some content. But I really hope this was helpful for you guys. This is how you create a social media strategy. These are the things that are really important to know before going in and starting to just post. I mean, and just to back things up a little bit, when a client, let's say I get a client today, they pay, and they're like, yeah, we want a strategy, we want monthly posts, all that stuff. It doesn't mean that I'm not going to post until I have all this stuff done. Like, the beginning is going to be a little bit of testing, and that's really a part of it too, because all the data might say you should post this kind of post, and sometimes things will surprise you. So I'm still posting, kind of testing things out, but I really am developing this more formal strategy as I'm getting things going. And I will let them know typically, like, okay, on month 2, like the end of month 1, I'm going to have a formal strategy for you. And month 1, I'm kind of just going to be like fixing a lot of things and testing a lot of things and all that good stuff. So that's what's up. Hope that was helpful. Yeah, definitely be sure to subscribe to my YouTube channel. If you're watching on YouTube, hit that bell button as well if you want to be notified whenever I post new episodes of the podcast and new regular YouTube videos. I post twice a week, hopefully, if I'm doing this correctly. And if you are listening to the show, be sure to review my show on Apple Podcasts. It really helps people learn what we're all about and join this community and get the knowledge that hopefully they are craving. You can do that on YouTube as well. I'm going to link it down in the description box if you want to review the show. And tune in next week for a brand new episode. I post every single Friday. Thanks for watching and listening. Bye. Thanks for tuning in to today's episode. Show notes for this episode are available at latashajames.com/podcast and contain all of the links I may have mentioned today, as well as an invitation to join my private Facebook group, the Freelance Friday Podcast Community. Thanks so much. We'll talk soon.